do you think male privilege exists?
Yeah, I mean, in a certain sense,
and is
yes.
it greater than female privilege?
I think that we all have inherent privileges, and I think it's important to talk about intersectionality when we talk about privilege. Because,
yeah, but what's the question is asking specifically, do you think that...
Andrew, you don't let me finish my statement.
Because...
You want me to finish the statement because you don't know where I'm going with it?
Yes or no, do men have more privilege in society?
Yeah, it's a very simple question, but it's always like a but.
I think some men do, yes. But again, like, I would think that a disabled man probably has less privilege than a able-bodied woman, depending on what his disability is.
If we were to take all women and put them collective as a group and all men collective as a group, would you say that men are more advantaged or have privileges over women, or that women are privileged and have advantages over men?
Yeah, I would say collectively, men probably have more privileges.
Okay, so now we understand exactly what it is that we're arguing. So let me just start with this. What about the draft?
I'm asking you a generalized question, but then you need to explain what you meant with the generalized question so they can give an answer.
What about the draft?
So how is it that men are privileged over women when men can be drafted and women cannot?
Well, that would be an example of when women have a privilege over men. I don't think the draft should apply to anyone, though. To be honest,
it does apply to men.
I know,
right?
And I don't even think we should have a draft.
But
I think
we do have a
that
draft.
is inherently immoral as well.
Yeah, but we do have a draft. We do, descriptively.
I know, and we should.
And how could it be that men, young men especially, can be drafted at the age of 18, 19, 20 years old, be sent to fight wars often on behalf of women who can vote them into those wars, right? How is that a privilege that men have? And what is if you had to pick anything that you could point to for women that is on par with that duty that men have, I want to hear what it is.
Good point.
I would say probably the societal role of the traditional wife and the inability for certain women, or the promotion of an idea that women should not be allowed to work.
Who promotes that women should not be allowed to work?
Yeah.
You do.
No.
No. We never said that. You can. But generally, taking care of the family was just way more important also to women. They valued it way different.
I don't.
So you think that women should be allowed to work?
Women have always been able to work.
And you think that outside of the home?
Yeah, of course they've always been able to work outside the home.
That's great.
What does that have to do with anything?
I mean, part of the whole manosphere.
Oh, come on! Why do you go to the manosphere? Why do you go to the manosphere? You just have a bunch of idiots that never had a wife for more than a certain time advocating for stupidity, and you point at them. I come from the Caribbean, super conservative. When I was 7 years old, my mom was working in 1987. It was normal. Like, my father was the most progressive. Everybody worked. She just worked less because she wanted to be with the baby.
Of these social norms and social roles.
That's where you're wrong. You see,
really?
Actually, you have the more misogynistic view.
No, but I'm against
You have the more misogynistic view. The truth is that what the manosphere would say is that a lot of them say, no, those women need to fucking work. Otherwise, they're in a position of privilege being at home. So let me ask you this. Are women in a position of privilege?
What manosphere podcaster is
saying you hear them say it all the time.
I've said that before. It's more comfortable to stay at home and take care of the kids. Dilo, remember to subscribe.
¿Por qué?
Women in a position of privilege.
Candace Owens isn't saying that. Myron Gaines isn't saying that.
Yeah, they do. But here's
Andrew
the
Tate
thing.
is not saying that.
I agree with her. Myron Gaines is special.
For you.
None of them are
Are
saying
women
that.
in a position of privilege when they're stay-at-home moms?
No.
Are they in a position of privilege when they're working?
Unless I think that they're in a position of equality or equity. That's the goal.
But so then that would mean, by that logic, they're oppressed by being stay-at-home moms.
I think that if they are not using their free will to decide whether or not they're a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah, they're a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
Are they privileged or not privileged? Is it a privilege to be a stay-at-home mom, or is it not a privilege to be a stay-at-home mom?
Yeah, define it.
Or is it a privilege for women to work, or is it not a privilege to work?
I think it depends circumstantially. If a stay-at-home mom is choosing and has her free will to be a stay-at-home mom, and that is an arrangement that she made with her husband, who would also like to do that, then it can be, yes. But if a woman does not have the right to make that choice, and if you are, proposing a society in which we follow strict gender rules and societal rules in which
but gender norms show women always working, always having worked.
Yes.
The idea is gender norms, what they don't show is that it's a good idea for women to take their reproductive years and work outside of the home. That's stupid. That
No,
makes
it's
no
not.
sense. Yes, of course.
How do you establish yourself in a career if you like actively have a child at home?
You establish yourself in a career after your childbearing years, like everybody else
so
would.
you have to start work at like 40?
Yeah, versus
Well, my mom did it, and she had the babies earlier. She wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and then she worked. I'm not saying you have to do it, but then again, as a person that has his babies in 35 and going above, I'm way more tired than before, and even my wife's agree.
Hide the pain.
versus having children at 40?
But you don't have, you can do both though. You can
but
have
here's the
children
thing.
and
That's a lie, but you can try.
This is what's so funny.
Establish a career.
Do you think then that if you moms split their attention between their children and their career, that their children are going to get as much attention as they would if the mom didn't have a career?
But why should a mother not have the ability to have a career
For
if
their
she-
children.
Well, then just don't have children. if you
They
don't
would
want
do,
them.
right, exactly. This is my point though, right? It's like, so why
Dude,
wouldn't
but
you?
women make up 47% of the labor force. Literally millions of women
Yeah.
do this every day.
Yeah, and you know what happens? Our birth rate, do you know what it's at?
It's a lot lower, significantly.
Why?
Because women are having kids older. But that's free will. You can't just usurp someone's right to have free will
do you
because
think-
their job is to have a
So let me ask
baby.
you, is it a negative thing that the birth rate is declining to the point where we can't even sustain our population?
Well, we could if we'd allow immigrants to come in. But
wait,
This is the cop-out that I never like. When you say you're not making enough babies, I'm like, yeah, you came into the force, the system changed, more people are working, but the price is still going up. Now I can't have any babies, and instead of helping us, the government itself, that you tax us so much, you decide to bring other people in that generally are more comfortable having the babies because you help them way more to sustain a life in the new economy. And I'm not saying that you don't help the other people. I'm just saying, can we just help people equally? Do you know how hard it is for me to get help as a person that is still married compared if I was divorced or sick or jobless? It's wild.
wait, so you want to replace the population?
no, I'm not a replacement theorist. But at
You
the
want to
same
replace
time,
the population?
Can we go back?
No.
to-
Can you answer the question? If it is the case that our population's massively decreasing, which you just conceded it is, because women are having children older, which you just conceded they are,
Sure.
and you say that's a good thing,
I'm not saying
and then
that's
say it wouldn't go down if we had immigrants come in. How's that not replacing the population?
I'm not saying that's a good thing, but I don't understand what your solution is. Should women not be allowed to work until
It's
after
your
they've had
internal
children?
critique time now. Tell me
Should
real quick.
women not be allowed to
tell
work
me real quick
until they've had
Well,
children?
Why are you asking me questions instead of answering them now? It's my turn to ask the question. So
Why is that? Who
Because
said
you
that?
just
We're having an open discussion.
you just internally critiqued, and I allowed you for over an hour at least my position, my turn. So real quick, can you
sure.
tell me why it is that when you get to the point where you cannot replace your own population and you say, well, we wouldn't have a problem with that if we opened it up to immigrants, how is that not you advocating for replacement?
I'm not advocating for complete replacement. I'm not saying people should just stop working and stop having children and it should be entirely up to immigrants. But I mean, if we did have more channels for immigrants to come into this country legally, we might
Would
not be
that
so worried about the
replace the
population.
domestic population?
What's the problem with doing that, though?
What,
mean,
would
are we
it,
not all humans?
Would it replace the domestic population?
Just answer the question. Stay on topic. Isolate the incident.
It wouldn't completely replace it.
Would it mostly replace it?
It would add. Why is it replace? It's adding.
Because
If you eat my food, you're not eating my food. You're satisfying your hunger. Without understanding the effects it has on a society.
Because if the people who are, okay, let me ask you this. Is it a good thing that Native Americans don't have a lot of kids?
Why aren't they having kids?
Well, is it a good thing that they are or are not? Would you rather see Native Americans having more kids?
I mean, I don't.
Like, why is it a bad thing that we came over here and took land from the Native Americans and replaced their population? Why is that bad?
Well, because we killed millions of people and
Well,
caused
no, well,
significant amounts
no,
of
no,
suffering.
actually-
It was human suffering. It was
Actually,
Whoa. They attacked each other too. But the whole idea that they were so peaceful, kumbaya, that's a wild statement.
Actually, most
I
of
mean, what do you-
hang on,
like,
most of
what do you
what
mean,
killed
why is genocide bad?
most of what killed Native Americans was not genocide; it was disease.
the Trail of Tears killed millions of people.
Okay, the Trail of Tears didn't kill millions of people.
Yes, it did.
How many millions do you think died in the Trail of Tears?
Go look up the history. Shit, don't everybody believe in Google? Go Google that shit. See what I'm talking about.
Let's Google it.
Google it.
All right.
Ooh.
How many millions died at the Trail of Tears?
Ooh.
It says an estimated 4,000 out of 16,000 Cherokee people, or wait, forced to relocate. Let me see deaths.
How many millions?
It says estimate that 6,000 men, women, and children die on the 1,200-mile march called the Trail of Tears, Cherokee.
Ooh, so she's way off at advocating for that. Ooh, so she's way off at advocating for that with the platform that they trust, which is Google. Because if I used another platform, that's misinformation.
Okay.
So is 6,000 anywhere close to millions?
So let's just look at
and
colonization.
millions.
How many Native American people were killed from colonization? Can you Google that one for me?
Yeah, disease.
How
no,
many
no,
Native
no. How many
Amer- no,
were
no, no,
killed by
no.
disease?
How many Native
Millions.
Americans killed by...
Colonization. It's millions of people.
No, disease killed them. Disease killed the overwhelming amount of
You
Native
know that
Americans.
we used chemical warfare, or not?
Wait, what?
Chemical warfare was not used back in the day when we were going on ship. I don't know, maybe it was a weird disease from Europe. You infected everybody. You had Black Plague, mostly in Europe. And most Europeans can go into Africa because you had so many insects. They would remove everybody from the ship and they would die.
We
did, huh?
Yes.
So we didn't understand anything about how diseases worked, but we were able to use diseases for chemical warfare, huh?
What do you mean we didn't understand how disease works?
When do
I
you
never said
think?
that.
When do you think we understood the disease process?
Yeah.
You know that smallpox blankets that were infected with smallpox
Total
were
myth.
given and gifted to... No,
How-
it's not.
how- do
No,
you-
the fuck it's not.
Okay,
Bullshit,
let me ask you a
Andrew.
question.
It's not a myth.
You get sick,
Yeah.
and you don't understand how the disease process works because science hasn't discovered it yet. And then you hand a blanket that sick people have used to another person, not
Will
understanding
you fact check that one too, Brian?
Check it.
Yes.
Let us investigate.
Ladies and gentlemen, look at this. There was this doctor called Ignaz Semmelweis. He discovered that doctors who came from the autopsies and then helped deliver babies without washing their hands was spreading deadly infections. You know what the heck happened to this person? In 1865, he was committed to an insane asylum where he died shortly after possible due to mistreatment. He died and they built a statue in his name because he was right. And that was in 1865.
Which one?
Okay, wait.
Smallpox-
First of all, how many millions were
Check
killed
the
through
smallpox
colonization?
myth.
Get that one first.
In the United States, in North
the
America,
US.
or the
In North
entire
America.
Americas?
Ooh, actually,
including-
if we did it,
You're just goalpost shifting.
I mean, but that's not true. I said that millions
you
of people
said
were
millions
killed
of
through
people
colonization.
died during the Trail of Tears.
Okay.
Stop lying.
All right, then let's include all
Holy
of the
shit, stop lying. And also, check. All you have
But
to
the
do
whole
is
point
check
that
the
you
disease.
said is that Native Americans
all you
were
have to
killed.
do is check the disease rates. It was 80 to 90% of all natives died from diseases. And by the way, the
question that
smallpox
you were
blankets,
asking-
the smallpox blankets happened hundreds of
Andrew,
years after
calm down.
colonization.
Calm down. The question
The
that you were
smallpox
asking...
blankets happened hundreds of years post-colonization.
The question
hundreds.
that you were asking, let's fact check that, but while you're doing that, the question that you were asking is, was the colonization of the Americas bad? And I'm saying, yes, it was, because it resulted in the deaths of millions of people.
Got it. So if the outcome, and that would be a negative outcome, right?
Yes.
So
oh
if
my
Jap-
God, why is my
if
entire family
Japan
calling me?
if Japan wants to keep itself Japanese, is that negative?
For what purpose?
Because they just want to be Japanese
How are they doing that?
by not letting in any immigrants.
Are immigrants coming to their country and are they detaining them in cages? and
Very,
sending them out?
very few are ever allowed to come in. Yes, very few.
I mean, if they're not physically hurting or endangering those people, then I wouldn't say that's necessarily a negative. But I think it depends on the outcome for the Japanese population.
So
as
if the
well.
Japanese, let's just say that they only wanted their domestic population to be Japanese, there's nothing inherently wrong with that.
I don't know.
You don't know?
Can I answer the question? If there's a net negative that happens when the Japanese population self-isolates, then I do think that there's something inherently wrong with that. But I think it's hard to quantify how negative that is to that population.
So like if the Japanese were isolating themselves and their
Yes.
birth rate was decreasing, you
Yes.
would consider that to be negative.
Yes, if they were losing population, if they were losing a labor force because of self-isolation, if people were starving and people could not make enough money because of
Well, they weren't just
self-isolation.
they're not starving,
Well,
but
I
they're
guess,
just
yeah.
not reproducing.
If people aren't reproducing and they're incapable of reproduction or...
They're capable of it, they're just not.
Yeah, I mean, if it is hurting that population, then I would say that's a net negative.
Okay,
for
so
sure.
then if white people aren't reproducing, is that hurting their population?
Ooh.
Sheriff, he's over here.
It depends. Do they want to reproduce?
It's seemingly the like primary edict is reproduction, right?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so then if white people are not reproducing, that's harmful to white people's population.
Well, if the primary edict is reproduction, then why aren't they reproducing?
You don't know why they're reproducing? Isn't the price going up? Don't we have messages consistently telling people, well, you don't need... Oh! Yeah, ladies are not having babies earlier because it's not seen as a good thing anymore. It's not promoted. People shame you for it. Or they will tell you you're only doing it because a man told you or patriarchal or the system.
Well, because they defer what's happened is there has been a massive campaign to defer all women's childbearing years for college years. This is in every industrial country we look at.
So what are you structurally
I'm
advocating
asking you
for?
this question. I'm asking you, is it inherently bad that white people aren't reproducing?
No, if they have...
So is it inherently bad, like you just said, that the Japanese people aren't reproducing?
I guess no. If they're
So then
exercising
why-
their free will. But
What
this
the
is the point.
fuck? How?
Hypocrisy, my friend.
You can say whatever you want. You can be nice, whatever you want. But when the moment you talk about white men, it seems wild.
Bad if the Japanese don't reproduce, but it's bad if they don't, but it's not bad if white people don't.
No, I'm not saying it's bad if either group does.
But
What
you
I'm
just
saying
did.
is it depends on the effects to that population and why they're not reproducing. If they're not reproducing as an exercise of free will,
Gotcha.
and they are happier without reproducing, then why is that negative?
So
When you talk about free will, that you make the decision, but somebody consistently is telling you how you need to live, is that free will?
if we were to look at like the mental health outcomes of women who reproduce versus those who didn't, which group would you say would be happier?
I'm not sure. Which group do you say would be happier?
Well,
Statistically, which group is happier?
The one with
the
family.
group that's statistically happier are women who reproduce and have children.
Okay, but again, that's the whole causation correlation thing, and it feels like
The thing is like everything you can say is a causation, right? We look for the primary causation for what is the correlation. We even do this with things like drinking and driving, right? So
Yeah.
I could always say, no, it just correlates that drinking in your car leads to more accidents, right? But if it is the case that that's the primary correlate, then we tend to say it's because drinking and driving, these accidents increase.
Okay.
That's how you would do it. Hang
All
on.
right, so
if
let's
that's the
say-
case, I'm just asking you again the question, right? When you say, oh, it's just correlation, causation. If the primary correlation is that they're having children and that's what makes them happier, and that women who don't have children are less happy, then wouldn't you say that's a negative outcome?
She can never say that. It's always shaming. I can show you proof.
Kids are the future. You know? And I'm walking next to two future moms too, which is great.
I will be a mom one day.
Yeah, you will be. It's gonna be awesome. I'll be a father as
Ew.
well.
The two different reactions between me and Emily. You're like, ugh. I'm like,
That's what I see online, and that's what kids see consistently online. So I'm not surprised they might start thinking like that.
yes, I would say that's a negative.
Okay.
But I do just want to ask. So
Finally.
let's say that that is a negative outcome. What is your solution? Do you think women should not be allowed to go to college? Do you think women should?
I would just advocate for a national campaign which asks women to keep the traditional family intact because it's going to lead to the most amount of children, and to defer those college age years, just like we did a national campaign to try to move women into college. I would do a national campaign to say defer those years for childbearing, and you can always go to college later after your kids are grown, or you can do it from
Oh,
home.
that's not fun. That's not the point of college. Did you go to college?
The point of college is to go,
No.
what's the point?
The point of college is to learn while you are young so that you can gain skills that help you in the workforce and develop a career over time. It takes time to develop a career. You
You
can
can
just do that
develop.
whenever.
You can develop First of all, most of the people are getting degrees. By the way, they ain't using those fucking degrees in any of those fields, are they? What's your degree going to be in? What's it going to be in?
Fucking your mom. No, I'm joking. Film production.
And do you think that you're going to end up a film producer?
Hopefully. That's the goal.
but I mean, do you think that the chances that most people who have a degree in film production are producing film?
I mean, I happen to go to the best film school in the country, but, you know.
Yeah,
I'm
and
sure a
just
lot
like
of
I
people
just
aren't.
had a woman I
But-
talked to yesterday who got a degree in comedy writing.
Oh, well, sorry.
She had to laugh.
There's
Yeah, even she had to laugh on that one. Look, I'm not saying that going to college is bad. Even my wife went to college, and I always asked her, what would you do? She's like, If you earned enough money, I don't mind to stay at home because I want to be with my kids. But right now, I have a good job and I've seen my mom suffer cleaning houses and I don't want to do that. And the fact that now I have MS, I'm disabled, she can actually help us and we'll see what's going to happen with me in the future. I either get the official disability or I just have to go back to work. We both recognize working together we have more money so we can do things calmly with our kids. We don't want to be rich. We don't want to be at the top. We don't want to spend our times away from our kids. We just want to live chill with no stress.
The struggle was real.
Because stress will destroy you before you can reach the age to just go on a pension. Both me and my wife feel that we were lied to about how amazing it is to be with your kids. It's actually way more fun. What we see in movies and Sex in the City and all that mumbo jumbo, we believe we've been lied to.
Don't get me wrong, makosa kita bong. Put the fire na mi blonde kush hash purple skunk Criollo colombici jam jam. Turloqueta verdeta welcome.